How do you get your image from the sensor onto your various different types of storage, memory cards, SSDs, whatever they are? Well, the purest way, the nicest image is simply raw video. It's spelled with lowercase, it's not capital, it's not an acronym, it's not raw, it's just raw. Raw video is that purest data off the sensor possible, hence raw. There are things which do affect the raw image. Those are physical attributes. We're talking the focus of the lens, the shutter speed, and the aperture. The rest of the stuff, all the stuff you fiddle with in the camera, the ISO, the picture profiles, the white balance, those are just simple metadata flags, just a little bit of data which can be easily changed in post. If your camera has a base ISO of say 100 and you're shooting and you decide, oh, it's not quite bright enough, I'm going to change it to 200, increasing it by a stop of light. But you're recording raw video, it's still just going to be 100 ISO. Just when you play it back, a flag will tell the computer, he recorded it at 200, so play it back one stop brighter. Likewise, if your white balance wasn't correct and your images are a little bit blue or a little bit orange, that's okay. Again, it's just a simple change of a dial inside your software. It wasn't recorded like that. Those are just flags, metadata. And it's the same with your picture profiles. You set it to a certain thing, where you set it to log or a more saturated look, or even black and white for viewing, it's still recording the raw data. You go into post and you can change it to whatever you want it to be. So raw is wonderful, and when I take photographs, I always use raw. The reason I don't shoot raw much with video is simply because it hasn't been processed much. The file sizes are big. It takes a long time in post to deal with it. If it wasn't for that, I would use raw all the time. And this is where we come into our codecs and compression. Video compression is a necessary evil. It is the only way we can reduce those file sizes to get it into a manageable format, so we don't have to spend a fortune on memory cards and a fortune on hard drives. There are three main types of compression. Let's start with the most compressed, which is B-frame, which is bidirectional predicted frame compression. It looks at the frame before the one it's recording and the one after, and it says, what is the difference here? And it just records those differences. We then have P-frame, which is predicted compression. So what that does, it looks at the previous frame and just makes the difference between those. It doesn't look at the next frame. And then the best one, which is the least compressed, is iframe. Intraframe, it just looks at that, compresses what it can. It doesn't look before, it doesn't look after. It's the best looking image, but there are the bigger file sizes. Often your camera will have many of these options in there, or have more than one format that you can record in. Which one you choose is down to really a number of factors. Is how much post-production you want to do on it, how many memory cards can you afford, and your ability to post-process them. Don't try and use the too compressed stuff. Do try and use the better quality if you can. If your camera does have an iframe codec, do use it. So with your codecs and the amount of compression that they have, this is measured in megabits per second. So the lower the number, the more compressed it is. The higher the number, the less compressed it is, and that will take up more space on your memory card. For the most part, it is simple as that. Lower the number, worse image. Higher the number, better image. The only caveat is how modern that compression format is. Sometimes these modern formats are actually really efficient and can be a better looking image than a high number in a much older compression format. You'll also see 3 digits with your codec and you go, well, what is that? That is chroma subsampling or color resolution. So it's measured in the 3 figures. The first one is the luminance value, which is your brightness, and the second is your red luminance, and the third is your blue luminance. Most 8-bit cameras, not all, record their chroma subsampling in what's called 4:2:0. So for every 2 rows of 4 pixels, color is sampled from 2 pixels in the top row and none in the bottom row. This is all part of compression as well. By guesstimating and working out from an average of the colors, it does save on space. Now we have a high quality, and this is called 422. So instead of just sampling the 2 pixels on the top row, it also samples 2 pixels from the bottom row. And 444, which is much better quality, it samples all the pixels, all 4, both on the red and on the blue luminance. Does this actually make a difference to our image though? Sort of. 420 is fine. So what this camera records in, and most of my cameras record in 420. It's only if you're going to do some really fine color work, especially when you do anything with green screens and blue screens and effects, you want to have a higher chroma subsampling of at least 422. 444 if you can, but 422 is terrific. But for most of us, we can get away with 420. There is a way of getting 422 out of most of your cameras though. And that's where external recorders come in, which are very useful if your camera has a very compressed internal codec and you want to have something better. Hello, do you use external recorders? No? Why not? If you are using an external recorder, what happens is you get a signal out of the HDMI port or the SDI port if you have it, and that will be generally uncompressed and a better chroma subsampling, normally of around 422. Whether it is a better bit depth depends on the camera. If your camera is 8-bit internal, you may not have anything better than 8-bit external. It would be great if it does, because that would make a real difference with the external recorder. What you will get with the external recorder is a less compressed format in better chroma subsampling.